It was still dark when Mary Magdalene arrived at the tomb. The sky was shrouded in a cold, silent mist, as if nature itself was mourning. Her steps were slow, almost dragging, as she walked towards the place where Jesus' body had been laid. Her heart was heavy, as if she carried a mountain of pain and sorrow. Her eyes, swollen and red from crying, reflected the anguish of someone who had lost not only a master but a friend, a guide, someone who had transformed her life in a profound and irreversible way. Mary Magdalene was no ordinary character in the story of Jesus. She was one of the few women who accompanied him closely during his ministry, a faithful disciple who had been freed from 7 demons by his powerful hand, and who since then had dedicated her life to following him. She had witnessed his miracles. She had seen the blind regain their sight, the paralyzed walk, and the dead come back to life. She had heard his teachings, full of wisdom and compassion, and felt the unconditional love that emanated from his presence. Now, however, everything seemed to have come to a tragic end. Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God, had been crucified, and she was there on that dark morning to anoint his body with spices, a final gesture of love and reverence. But what Mary Magdalene didn't know was that this morning would not be like any other. That morning would change not only her life, but the entire history of humanity. As she approached the tomb, her heart quickened as she realized that the stone sealing the entrance had been removed. Fear and confusion took hold of her. Had someone desecrated the place? Where was Jesus's body? Running, she went to the disciples, Peter and John, and told them what she had seen. "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him," she said, her voice trembling with despair. The disciples ran to the tomb, and upon entering, saw that the body was indeed not there. The linen cloths that had wrapped Jesus were there, folded carefully, but he was not. Confused and stunned, they returned home. Mary, however, remained there weeping. It was then that something extraordinary happened. As she bent down to look inside the tomb, she saw 2 angels dressed in white, sitting where Jesus' body had been. "Woman, why are you crying?" they asked. Mary replied, still not understanding, "Because they have taken my Lord away, and I don't know where they have put him." At that moment she heard a sound behind her. As she turned around, she saw a man whom she supposed to be the gardener. He repeated the angel's question, "Woman, why are you crying? Who are you looking for?" Mary, still not recognizing him, pleaded, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." It was then that Jesus, for it was he, spoke her name, Mary, and in an instant, she recognized him. The voice she had heard so many times, full of love and authority, brought her the certainty that he was alive. "Rabboni," she exclaimed, Aramaic for teacher, as she knelt to embrace his feet. At that moment, Mary Magdalene's pain and sadness transformed into indescribable joy. She had become the first witness of the resurrection of Jesus, the most extraordinary event of all time. The one who had conquered death, who had fulfilled the promise of redemption for humanity, was alive. And Mary Magdalene, the faithful disciple, was chosen to bring the news to others. "Go to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God," Jesus commanded. With her heart overflowing with joy and hope, Mary Magdalene ran to tell the disciples what she had seen and heard. On that day, she not only witnessed the resurrection, but became a messenger of the good news, the first to proclaim that Jesus was alive. Her life, like the history of humanity, would never be the same. The resurrection of Jesus Christ marked the beginning of a new era, a time of grace, forgiveness, and eternal life for all who believe in him. And Mary Magdalene, with her faith and devotion, became an eternal symbol of the love and fidelity that all followers of Jesus are called to have. Imagine the scene with all the details that make it so powerful and moving. the sun beginning to dawn on the horizon, gently illuminating the garden where Jesus' tomb had been placed. The air still heavy with the weight of the sadness and pain of those who had witnessed the crucifixion. Mary Magdalene, one of Jesus' most devoted followers, approaches the tomb, her heart heavy with grief. She carried with her aromatic oils, prepared to anoint the body of her master, a final gesture of love and reverence. However, upon arriving, she is faced with something unexpected. The stone that sealed the tomb had been removed, and the tomb was empty. Confusion and despair take hold of her. Where was Jesus' body? Who could have taken him? Amidst that anguish, she hears a soft yet firm voice calling her by name. Mary. That was a sound she knew so well, a voice that had brought peace and hope in so many difficult moments. She turns around and there he is, Jesus, resurrected, alive before her eyes. In an instant, the pain that consumed her transforms into indescribable joy. Hopelessness gives way to renewed hope, and death is overcome by life. Mary Magdalene not only sees Jesus resurrected, but is chosen for an extraordinary mission to bring the news of the resurrection to the other disciples. She becomes the first messenger of the greatest miracle of the Christian faith, the eyewitness to Jesus' victory over death. But why Mary? Why was a woman, in an era when female testimony was not valued, chosen for such an important mission? The answer may lie in the depth of her faith, in the courage she demonstrated by remaining at the foot of the cross when many others had fled, and in the unconditional love she dedicated to Jesus. Mary Magdalene was not just a follower. She was someone who had been transformed by her encounter with the Master. Before meeting him, she had been freed from 7 demons, and this liberation had made her a woman full of gratitude and devotion. Her life was a living testimony to the transformative power of Jesus. Perhaps God chose Mary Magdalene because she represented so clearly the heart of God himself, a heart full of compassion, love, and mercy. In a society where women's voices were often silenced, God elevated Mary as the first witness of the resurrection, showing that in his kingdom there is no distinction of gender, status, or past. What matters is the disposition of the heart and the willingness to serve. Mary Magdalene teaches us profound lessons. She shows us that, regardless of who we are, what we have been through, or the limitations that the world may impose on us, we can be instruments of transformation and hope. Her story reminds us that the resurrection is not just a historical event, but a living reality that continues to transform lives today. Through her courage and faith, Mary inspires us to believe that even in the darkest moments, the light of the resurrection can shine, bringing new life and new possibilities. Therefore, as we reflect on the story of Mary Magdalene, we are invited to look at our own lives and ask, how can we be messengers of hope in our time? How can we, like Mary, bring the good news that death has been defeated and that life has triumphed? Her story is a call to each of us, a reminder that with faith and love, we can be agents of change in a world that so desperately needs hope and redemption. And you? Have you ever stopped to reflect deeply on how your story, with all its nuances, challenges, achievements, and even failures, can impact the world around you? Each of us carries a unique journey, full of experiences that have shaped who we are today. These experiences, however simple or complex they may seem, have the potential to touch lives, inspire change, and bring hope to those who cross our path. Mary Magdalene is a powerful example of this. She shows us that even in the darkest moments, when everything seems lost and despair seems to take over, the light of the resurrection can shine, bringing with it a new perspective, a new chance, a new life. Mary Magdalene was not a perfect or immaculate figure. Before meeting Jesus, she had been dominated by 7 demons, perhaps symbolizing a life marked by pain, confusion, and despair. However, when she met Jesus, everything changed. He freed her, healed her wounds, and gave new meaning to her existence. From that moment on, she became a dedicated follower, a woman who not only witnessed Jesus' miracles, but who was also present in the most difficult moments, including the crucifixion. While many abandoned Jesus in the darkest hour, Mary Magdalene remained steadfast, demonstrating a loyalty and love that transcended fear and pain. And it was precisely this woman, marked by a difficult past, but transformed by the love of Christ, whom God chose to be the first witness of the resurrection. Imagine the weight and beauty of that moment. Mary, still shaken by the death of Jesus, goes to the tomb at dawn, carrying with her aromatic oils to anoint the body of the Master. Upon arriving, she finds the tomb empty, and amidst her anguish hears the voice of Jesus calling her by name. In that instant, pain transforms into joy, hopelessness into hope, and death into life. Mary Magdalene not only sees Jesus resurrected, but is commissioned to bring this news to the disciples. She becomes the first messenger of the resurrection, the bearer of the good news that would change the course of history. But why Mary? Why was a woman, in an era when female testimony was not valued, chosen for such a significant mission? The answer may lie in the depth of her transformation. Mary Magdalene was living proof of God's power to restore and renew. Her story reminds us that no matter how dark our past may be or how great our current struggles, God can use each of us to fulfill a greater purpose. He does not look at our imperfections, but at the potential we have when we allow Him to work in our lives. Mary Magdalene teaches us that the resurrection is not just a historical event, but a reality that can be repeated in our lives every day. How often do we feel as if we are in a dark tomb, surrounded by stones of despair, doubt, and fear? How often do we think there is no way out, that life has lost its meaning? It is precisely in these moments that the light of the resurrection can shine the brightest. All you have to do is believe. Just trust that just as Jesus resurrected, He can also bring new life to our circumstances, our relationships, our dreams. And you, how can your story be a reflection of that hope? Perhaps you have faced losses, failures, or moments of profound pain. Perhaps you feel that your past defines you, or that your current struggles prevent you from being an instrument of transformation. But the story of Mary Magdalene reminds us that this is not how God sees us. He sees beyond our scars and our falls. He sees the potential we have to impact the world around us, to bring light where there is darkness, hope where there is despair, and love where there is indifference. Therefore, stop for a moment and reflect. How can you be a messenger of the resurrection in your community, in your family, in your workplace? How can you share your story of transformation to inspire others to believe that a new beginning is possible? Mary Magdalene shows us that we don't need to be perfect or have all the answers. All we need is to believe in the power of God to transform lives, including our own. And when we embrace this truth, we discover that our story, however simple it may seem, can be a beacon of hope in a world that so desperately needs light. Just believe.